Welcome to Reality Storyline, the podcast, episode 13. I'm your host, David Mivshek. So, as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm going to continue doing fate stacks here for band members in the same music band. So, in this episode, I'm going to do a fate stack for the last names of the band members of the band Motley Crue. And these were the founding members of Motley Crue, or the members that were in the band during the recording of the album A Theater of Pain. So those four band members, and if you haven't seen a fate stack, I'll explain it as I go along here. But their last names are Bass or Bass, and that's actually Tommy Lee, the drummer's real last name. His real name is Thomas Bass. And then the guitarist Robert Deal, which he's known as Mick Mars in the band. There's Vincent Wharton, who is Vince Neil. He's a vocalist. And then there's Frank Farana, who is Nikki Sixx, the bassist. So they really just, took their names and kind of ran in a whole different direction. But when the fate stack is created, you use the last names of the individual. Use a real last name. You don't use a fantasy name they came up with, like a pseudonym. Okay. As far as I know, like orthotics is still young in the development. I mean, I've been doing it over 20 years, but still things come along that are new. So the ones I've used, the last names that I've used, go back to their actual names, not the names they came up with to sound cool, right? Okay, so when a fate stack is decoded, and it's the band members of the same musical band that are listed, let's say, on an album as being in that band at the same time, it decodes into lyrics of a notable song. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a song that's their most popular, but that's in many cases what it is. It's usually one of their most known songs, or a song that, let's say, if like the band Deicide had an album Deicide, and the song that it breaks down into when you decode their last names breaks into lyrics about the song Deicide. So you have the band Deicide, the album name Deicide, and the song title called Deicide. And Deicide, when it came out, that was probably their most notable song on the album, right? But so it'll kind of use lyrics that have a song with some type of focus or congruency with a prominence of the band or something. So I'm going to decode this fate stack. If you haven't seen a fate stack decoded yet, basically you connect the letters either horizontally or vertically of the last name. So you put them in a matrix, the first letter of each last name in the first column, so forth and so on, until you get to the last letters. And so then you stack the names, shortest name to longest name on the bottom. You connect the letters horizontally or vertically, never just diagonally. You have to use every single letter, so there's no leftover letters in the end. And you have to use every letter in a word at least once. Okay, you can't. I'm not at least once. No more than once. So you have to use each letter, but you can only use each letter only one time. Okay, so the object is you're creating new words, and you're listing those words when you take them out from top left to bottom right, and I'll show that. And then all you do is add punctuation. So when I uncovered the process, I started realizing as I was uncovering it, all these rules really pinned a decoder down to kind of cut away their subjective thoughts on what the answer could be, right? By having these certain structures the decoder had to follow. Couldn't just make up a bunch of words and leave over a bunch of letters because they like certain words in the matrix, or take out the words any order they want to make a phrase that makes sense. It has to be listed in order, and then punctuation is added for clarity in dialogue purpose of writing it, or sharing it with someone so they understand the meaning. Okay, so I'm going to box in the first word. And the first word, and I box it in because if I put little lines in between the letters to show the connection, it just looks like a bunch of lines, and you can't really figure out what letters are connected to what line and things like that. So if you box it in, you can just kind of clearly see these three letters are boxed in. So you got the horizontal connection and the vertical connection. And the A is only connected diagonally with the D because they shared the B, okay? It's not like they were just connected and there's nothing they're connected to, right? Okay, so B-A-D, the word bad. And in this sense, the word bad, the definition is immoral, so not moral. Okay, so the opposite of being moral. All right, and then the second word is the word lass, L-A-S-S. Okay, so when you take out the letters that you've blocked in, you can anagrammatize them or recombine them or resituate them so you can, create a new word. Okay, and if somebody's like, well, I mean, right there, you're kind of doing what you want and making a meaning the way you want, but you can't take a group of letters and just make any word out of it. It's not like you have the whole alphabet. You got the letters L, A, S, and S. Okay, so you might be able to say sales if you're talking about a guy named Sal or something, like a possessive, like S-A-L apostrophe S. It's owned by Sal. But then it has to make sense in the sentence because these answers for band members describe lyrics to a song by that band. So you got to kind of think of it that way too. So this one spells lass, L-A-S-S. And in the answer, I have bad lass question mark. Okay, so a lass is a young woman or a girl, and the reason I put a question mark is because, and when these solutions, are read, they follow the lyrics in the order that they're listed in the song. Like not every single lyric is talked about. But the ones that are hit, it dots through the song, almost like there was a reader, like electronic reader or something, or a real being, right? Scanning the lyrics really quick and just bang, 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 pulled it out, made a code, wrapped it in within names and moved on, whatever type idea. So the reason I have a question mark on, because in verse 1, and I have to watch out, copyright infringement and things like that. So this is from the song Tonight, and then in parentheses, We Need a Lover. And it's a Motley Crue song, which is on the Theater of Pain album. Okay, so this was, back in 1988 or 87 or something? Okay, so the verse 1, lines 2, and then 4 through 6. And so line 2 says, honey dripping from her pot. Okay, and we're not talking about marijuana as pot. So it's already got sexual overtones. Motley Crue songs back then, and probably, past then too, were a lot about girls and partying and having sex and getting nasty and different things like that. Okay? So the line 2 says, honey dripping from her pot. And then lines 4 through 6 are, and I quote, the deadly sin is all we know. And in this case, as you will see, because this line preempts what's coming, it's this deadly sin that's being talked about is lust. Okay, so you got a girl with honey dripping from her pot, and then you got the deadly sin, which is all Motley Crue knows. Like this is all they know is just lust all day long, whatever. And then the next line is pleasure victim who's next to fall. Okay, so there's a victim of pleasure, so we know this is pleasure, lust. Okay. And the question, and then the last line is, the question is, will you please us all tonight? Question mark, right? The question, this is the lyric actually. The question is, will you please us all tonight? So you have a girl, right, that's being asked by the band, kind of in a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of in a not like in a dirty way. Is about is the word that's coming out kind of like in a dirty way, soliciting her for sex, right? Like honey dripping from her pot. Deadly sin is all they know anyway, so they're gonna do whatever lustful thing. Who's a pleasure victim next to fall, and the question is, will you please us all tonight? So it's like, are you? So the phrase "bad lass," like, will you please us all tonight? And this is how your demeanor is, right? As the last, honey dripping from the pot, pleasure victim, things like that. So it gives that sense, are you a bad lass? Are you a bad woman, young woman, girl? And I'm pretty sure when, they're singing this song, and when they wrote it, they weren't thinking about, the elderly lady down the road at, the retirement facility, right? It's probably more on the younger side. When they wrote these songs, they were, in their 20s maybe? So, all right, so then the next word I'm boxing in, so we're starting a new phrase, and that whole paraphrase of the lyrics was from verse 1. Okay, so now you have to move down to another verse after that. It might describe the same verse in another phrase if you stay within the same verse, but then it just goes down. And because this was in the first verse, you're going to have to go down anyway, the movement of the lyrics from beginning to end, because you can't go back to a verse 0. But in this case, that's what it is. Okay, so the next word I boxed in, so I took away bad, so you take those letters away because you used them, and then you continue to go across to the next row, which has an open letter, which was the letter E, an open letter meaning unused, and then you have an H, A, and R, so the word here. Okay, so in this case, the word here, and I'm looking at definitions over here, here is to be made aware of by the ear, apprehended by the ear. We all know what hearing is, right? And if you don't, then you probably should go back and learn some basic English and the basic functions of your body before watching the next episode. I'm just saying. All right, so something is being heard, right? So something is being listened to. Now we know this band is a musical band, and we know, common sense, I should say you should know, that listening to music, you have to hear it, right? Okay, so if you want to actually know what it's sounding like. All right, so anybody who needs things, broken down that simple, you're not going to be able to keep up anyway, so I'll just keep going on with the, people who understand basic aspects of who they are and the English language. All right, so the next word here, so I went across and I used here, the E for here, so now those letters are gone. So you can imagine all these are gone. Like a video game, you're like selecting these letters and poof, it's gone. Like people play these phone games, like, oh, there's a little symbol and that symbol, poof, it's gone, whatever. But those video games are meaningless. They're not providing you with any knowledge. Okay, so here you got the word few, okay, F-E-W. So here, few, something is being heard by, and few, I'll define that. Few is not many persons or things, okay? It's subjective. It's not really defined how many things are a few, but generally, you if you want to kind of consider like 3 or 4, just past a couple being 2, you have 1, and then you have a couple, and then 3, 4, 5 could be a few, to somebody else 50 could be a few, but in this case, we're talking about the band members, and I'm going to let you know that. So we're talking about 4 people, okay? Now the next word, because we used few, the word letters for here are gone, so now we go over here to the T, and you have R, A, N, and T, rant, okay? And the word rant means to talk noisily, excitedly, often extravagantly, okay? Declaim in bombastic fashion. That's the definition. All these definitions are from Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, so they're actual words, an actual definition. It isn't me just saying, well, I think it means this. I think I'll just tell you that's what it means. No, these are actually the definitions, right? To talk noisily, excitedly, often extravagantly. So we're hearing a few people rant something, right? What are they ranting? What are they talking noisily about? We can say, let's say you're in a music band, right? And there's 4 of you, and you're all just singing, in a certain fashion. Are you singing softly in Motley Crue, about this song? The song is like, tonight, we need a lover tonight. Okay, so it gives that kind of noisy vibe, a little bit of a ruckus going on. So it's using that word rant, okay? And the next, and I quote those lyrics. So the next group of letters is A-N-O-N for anon, okay? And the definition for anon in this sense is in a little while, soon, or presently, okay? So there's a few, you can hear them, right? There's a few that rant, okay? So there's somebody ranting, that has vocal cords, that's speaking, so we're going to say those are the band members, the people, and they're ranting. And in this case, I put a quotation as anon, okay, and I put an exclamation mark to say that, it's being kind of punched out, emphasized, right? And I put the quotation marks around it, the word anon, because they're actually chanting a word. They're not chanting anon, but they're chanting a word which lends to the anon definition of in a little while or soon. Because when they chant in the verse 2, which is actually the chorus, the lead singer, Vince Neil, and the rest of the crew members, and whoever they got on the album, I guess, to do any of these, backup vocals, they're screaming, tonight, as I mentioned, tonight, tonight. They keep saying it. We need a lover tonight. We need a lover too. And they keep repeating this, right? This word tonight. Well, when you think of you're in a day, right? And you're thinking about later on tonight, it's in the same day. You could consider that to be in a little while or soon, right? It's not 10 years from now. It isn't a week from now. It isn't tomorrow evening, which still could be in a little while, but that's, kind of stretching it. This is actually tonight. And in that first line, when they're talking about honey dripping from her pot, they're saying 90,000 screaming watts, going on at that time. So you get the sense that she's at the concert. So they're probably playing in the evening time, usually concerts, and they're talking about later that night, is she going to please them? So these lyrics, again, are representative by the D code, which is bad lass. Are you immoral? Are you going to be the one that pleases us all tonight? And then you can hear the band, you can hear them rant a phrase that is congruent with the word anon, okay? So this song by the band is not their most popular song, most known song. People know the song, right? Now, in these Fate Stack Answers, besides being like a song that's prominent because it's popular and known by a lot of people, it's sometimes a song that represents the kind of music that the band plays and the type of lyrics they generally write, okay? And this type of lyric idea is representative of the band, right? They have many songs about girls, many songs about sex, many songs about debauchery, basically. Maybe it lessened over the years, but when, they formed as a band and they were doing songs and different things like that, they were trying to hit all these different kind of shocking, I guess, phrases, and they, to give kind of like this more like dirty, grungy, dark aura about them. All right, so, and a lot of times Fate Stack Answers themselves, okay, besides just music, will be about a situation that is not just about like, walking down a trail where there's pretty birds singing a lovely tune for you. It's, it's usually the lyrics, or usually the answer for any type of Fate Stack has some air of destruction about it, okay? It's somehow information that you would find on a downward slope into like darkness is the best way to say it. It's like the being who, if this information is really in all these names, which I'm telling you it is, but if you want to think if, you're right, if it's really in there, it really lends to the idea that the being that made this code, right, and tied it in with conscious beings. It's not like we're robots and we don't realize what's going on, right? And knows that we understand everything that we see, as long as you have the mental capacity to do so. And sometimes when I look out at society today, I wonder, and I'm being honest, not just an old bitter guy, but we have this ability to understand that these things that go on, right, that are, let's say, on the darker end of the spectrum of morality, right, are things intended, right, to be a part of reality's programming code. Or else they wouldn't be in the last names of band members. Or wouldn't it be like when I did Code Broke and showed you either the Donald Trump rally shooting or the Jamie Claus abduction case. Those situations, for this code to actually exist within those names, has to be planned. It's not a random occurrence, right? It's a programmed occurrence. And in the realm of possibilities, you can't just say, well, it could be something else, and then walk away from it. There's only so many possibilities available, okay? And the possibilities necessitate that either this code is not within the last names, and it just appears that it is, right? It just appears, it's just a coincidence, right? Continuously on and on, it's just a coincidence, right? Either that's true, or this code is in the last names, and if that is the case, then there has to be a way that it got in the last names, okay? And if humans didn't put it in the last names, right, and let's say an extraterrestrial didn't, because that means they would have to make names and vocal cords and people, that would be just like saying God, right? The only way these codes could be within the names is either that's just natural, right? Now nature involves believing that, you know, anything made has been made just sporadically, and all these codes which follow detailed structure and a way to decode them are just randomly in there, and it's just all a big coincidence, like the finale of coincidences, right? Or it's intentionally put in there. And if it's intentionally put in there by a being other than humans, and it's basically a supernatural being, an intellect level for, you know, making people and you know, tying labels to those people and putting codes within those labels. And if there's a being doing that, then you have to look at the code, right, and the events it's tied to, and, you know, I guess feather out a few things. One, what did the being put that into the code for us to find, and wanted us to know that it's trying to create bad things for us to experience, right? Two, did that being put, you know, these answers into the last names of people for like fade stacks, you know, with good intention, and then some other supernatural being came by and screwed it all up, and, you know, and instead of, let's say, God correcting that other supernatural being's, like, you know, manipulation and destruction of the code, instead of reversing and getting it back to where it was, just said, okay, that's good enough for me, I'm out of here. I tried, and, you know, got messed up by this other supernatural being. I'm God, but, you know, I'm at a loss. Or the other possibility too is, you know, this idea that God gives people moments of suffering so they can learn from it. To me, that's just kind of like Stockholm syndrome. That's like, like saying, well, somebody stabbed me with a knife and now I can learn from it. Like, no, you're going to bleed out and die unless you unless you cover up the wound. There's no reason for it. If something happens afterward and there is a reason for it, and you can go, oh, that makes sense because now I'm making knife blades or something like that, and you become a millionaire making knife blades. What a poor way to teach you. I mean that's like somebody just slapping you in the face every day for no reason, so you learn, that being slapped in the face hurts. I mean, it makes no sense. But people like to make excuses for a supernatural being that they think is going to harm them. And that's, to me, where logically it's like, don't be afraid of a supernatural being that sets you up in situations that are going to harm you, right? Don't be afraid to call it out because you're afraid they're going to harm you again. Because in the end, they've already planned for you to die. It's kind of where the supernatural being failed in logic, right? Hoping that people continuously just give them praise and reverence out of fear of punishment, okay? And the problem with that idea is if the being then understands what is going on in that process, the being can just say, well, I'm going to be punished anyway, no matter what, right? So what's the difference if I, let's say, try to figure everything out and what's happening and call God out on the things that God causes the people, that causes the people suffering? Because God's, like for me, I do it, like I'll call God out on the problems that exist in my life or in somebody else's life, right? Or on this code. That's basically when I code break, I'm like, okay, God, now I'm seeing this again, and I'm seeing this type of action or intention upon people, and I'm calling you out on it, right? Now, somebody might sit back and be like, well, God doesn't care what you think. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the problem, right? If God doesn't care what you go through and what you think, right? Because God is just going to do it because God is, the all-powerful supernatural being, then what's the point in believing that this concept of creation is based on God's love, right? Because it's like going home to an abusive household, being a kid and not being able to do anything about it because you're too young, right? And you're too afraid. And you walk in and for no reason you start getting beat up by your parents or parent. And no matter what you do and what you say, it doesn't matter. You're going to get your ass beat. Okay? That's just how it is, right? So you're not learning anything by getting punished, right? You're getting hit when you go home. And you're learning to respect that. And you're learning to believe that's love. And you're learning to provide excuses for it. And then you continue progressing down that pathway because you think that's just, how it is. And there's nothing that can be done about it. And that's what's called Stockholm Syndrome. It's when people, let's say, get taken by someone, abducted, right? And they find out there's no way they can escape. So the best thing that they can do is basically just start having feelings for this person. They think they're going to die anyway. They think they're going to get abused anyway. And they're going to be searching for love somewhere. Because when you get to the point of such solitude and such fear, you basically just kind of quote unquote puss out, right? You can't fight back anymore, so your mouths just give in, and that's where Stockholm Syndrome comes in, and that's kind of what I'm saying is going on when you look at these codes and you look at things that happen in life with these events, and if the code is in these names, which I keep showing you it is, okay. That this idea of serving a being that is providing you suffering, and then people are going around saying, well, you have to suffer to learn. You can't learn unless you go to, so forth. And you can't have a good life unless you have a bad life. All this psychological manipulation and, you taking strings and tying them around in different ways to come up with solutions just so you can maintain this idea of praising something that intentionally is producing harm to you. So This is not like saying you shouldn't believe there's a God. I believe there's a God. That's why I believe this code is in there, right? This is not to say you believing God is all, like you should believe God is nothing but bad or treats you in harmful ways only, right? Or produces events that are just harmful in all cases. I'm not saying that either, okay? Because in my viewpoint, God is the ultimate angel and God is the ultimate demon, okay? So God is God as the all-loving God and the good God, and God is also the devil and is also the evil, okay? Unless you believe, because it's too hard to understand that or to fall into that concept because you think it's manipulative, demons are taking you over, whatever it is, right? Then you if you believe that there's an all-loving good God and then there's an all-powerful evil entity named the devil, Satan, whatever you give the name, right? And you believe there's two beings, right? Then you can just look at this code authored by both beings in a team effort. God did the good codes and the devil did the bad codes, right? But either way, they would both have the same power at this level. Because if God was, let's say, a step above the devil and was like the devil's manager and the devil is subordinate to God, then God could make sure the bad code wasn't in there, right? He would just deny the devil the opportunity to put it in there. But if God hasn't done that, then either God A doesn't mind it or B can't do anything about it because the devil's just as powerful as God, and therefore creation isn't only controlled by God, right? I'm not saying on little levels, it's, people push paper around or whatever, right? You can say, well, people control reality too. They push paper around. But I mean, God can just basically come and change it all at any time if he wanted to, right? But if you believe there's two beings that are at the same level doing this, then you have to believe in polytheism, which is like Greek gods and different things like that. There's a God for a purpose, right? Rather than one ultimate God, which is monotheism. Mono meaning one, poly meaning more than one or multiple, okay? So Christianity per se, I think masquerades as monotheism. Christianity portends, or I shouldn't say portends, purports to be monotheistic, but then allows other supernatural beings per se to be used as scapegoats for why bad things happen. And that's actually polytheism, kind of on the down low, okay? Now, my purpose in providing this code and having people hear it isn't to try to persuade you away from God or persuade you into the idea that God is a bad being. That's not my main purpose. My main purpose is to talk about it and then to decipher why that would be. Because if we were just biological robots without awareness of what we were doing, just imagine when you fall asleep at night. You wake up, you don't know what happened for 5 hours, 8 hours. You were laying there. Just imagine laying there awake for 8 hours just staring at the ceiling. You'd get bored. Conscious mind has no idea what's going on when you're sleeping, right? So if you were a biological robot, it would be like you were never waking up and you never fell asleep. It's like being dead. It's that same not knowing that you're a person. You don't wake up and just like, oh, I am a person. It's morning time. You just never wake up. That unknowing just keeps going, right? So God didn't make people to be biological robots that didn't have consciousness. God gave people consciousness, right? It's like a device, right? It's the awareness of the things happening around you. And because God makes bad events, right, happen, and this code shows that as evidence, then God purposely gave people consciousness knowing that they would actually understand and comprehend and feel the bad times. People could have just been biological robots. Let's say God had a plan and he wants people to do things what they're doing for a reason that he's coming to in the end. Well, people could have just been biological robots and not had any idea what the hell was going on, and God would get what he wanted in the end anyway. But God found it important to give people consciousness so they were aware of what they were going through. Now, they're also aware of the good times, right? I'm not saying that they're not, right? But most people understand this, or I think everybody does if they admit it. If you're having good times day after day, all things were going good for you, whatever that means, not just in a aesthetic sense, or superficial sense, but loving family, good people, no harm, and all this stuff, right? If you then follow that up with 3 days of just total destruction, right? Most people would say, I'd rather not have the destruction. Because let's say family members die, let's say you lose limbs, let's say, all these things happen. And then somebody comes along and says, well, that's because people have to suffer, and because, yes, that's how God made the planet, and whatever it may be. It's just kind of like, it sounds like just an excuse, right? For somebody that's like causing harm to people. It's almost like, here's a birthday present, right? Do you like it? And then they give it to you. Do you want it? Right? Here it is. It's really good. And then you're like, oh, I like the bow. It's pretty. I like the wrapping paper. And you undo it. And then it blows up in your face because it's a bomb, right? And then somebody says, well, happy birthday. You have to enjoy the bad gifts too. No, you don't. You don't have to enjoy the bad gifts. What the person needs to learn is the one creating the bad times and the one giving you the bad gifts is that they're acting inappropriately to the creature that they gave consciousness to. Okay? So instead of thinking that God is in a dimension above you, let's say, in the sense of moralistically and, in control of you, and you have to do what they say like a biological robot anyway, right? Or you get punished. Treat them like you're sitting down at the table with them, letting them know how they're acting inappropriately is affecting you, right? Because if you have consciousness and are led to believe that the body you're a part of, right, that you identify with, is a body you're supposed to take care of, right? That means you have to take care of it, even though that means that the being that gave it to you is harming you. You still have to take care of that body. So if the being that's given you the present, per se, is trying to take it away at the same time, and they've led you to believe that your purpose is to take care of that present, right? Then why are you giving it back? Don't give it back to that being. So let's say they give you the present, your life, and you take it and you're like, I'm going to do good things with this. I'm only going to do good things with this. And then they're just like, and they rip it from you and they're like, oh, hey, bong, bong, bong. And they give you 3 bad things that are going to happen in the next 5 minutes. And they're like, take your present back. And you're like, okay. And then you take it and it's like the first one is tacks that just fly up at you, hits you in the eye. The second one is like 3 mini bombs that blow up and blow off your shoulders. And the last one is like, who knows? A rabid dog from hell that comes and chews off your feet. It's like you're supposed to protect your body and your being, and keep it secure for the purpose God has for it, to do God's plan. But if God's plan is just providing you with hard times, right, throughout, not just hard times, I don't mean it that way, because, all right, for the idea of victimhood, right, everybody is a victim to God, okay? If God is doing things to harm you, okay, even if he's doing things that don't harm you, there's nothing you can do about it. So you're automatically a victim, and he's automatically a tyrant, okay? But if you have, let's say, free will, which I'll discuss in a future episode, but if you have free will, right, and you try to do the right thing for yourself, and you're going through situations where it just challenges you to do the good things anyway, then what's the purpose of that? Well, why would the being that's in control of all this be doing that to you? or to anybody if it's not you, right? We can all look at instances where we see somebody who's in a group of people or just an individual doing very bad things to other people. Either it be, degrading their social life by, let's say, selling 8-year-olds drugs, or, let's say, selling guns for, purposes for like gangs and things like that are actually going out using it to push their drugs, and or abducting, kids and different things like that. Right? These people have if they have choice to do that, right? And God's allowing them to do that, then isn't God like abetting in the crime too? Right? So, because he made it all happen. So he's kind of like the ringleader, is basically how it could be looked at in that situation. And that's when I think collectively, instead of thinking, well, we'll just go on praying God does this, or praying for God to do that. Because in the general sense of prayer, you could have a mass prayer going on, and people have done mass prayers, and you get such a little effect, right? I mean, what happened? My car started, and it wasn't starting before. I gave a real hard prayer, and then the next day the car's dead, and it doesn't happen again. I mean, what's that energy for? To me, it's just like fronting, right? Like virtue signaling to God that, like, no matter what you do to me, I still love you. Don't hurt me. But in the end, God has already planned your death. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to be a downer, right? I'm not saying there's no reason to live, right? We all go out there, we all have reasons to live, right? But when the people that are doing things that harm people are walking away, making millions of dollars, going on luxury vacations, maybe on their yacht, and I'm not just saying people that have money. I'm not saying people that have money are bad. I'm saying the people that do bad things and have money for it, right? And they know that they're doing bad things, scamming, whatever it may be, hacking into computer systems and taking millions of dollars from companies, and things like that. You think they're taking that money and not doing anything with it? No, they're enjoying their life day to day, in that sense of vacationing and stuff like that. While people that believe they're suffering for goodness and different things like that can't pay their next bill, are afraid of going homeless. Now you tell me, if you were in control of that planet, whose side would you be on? If you're a good person, right? Whose side would you be on, and why would you want those people to suffer? Would you just say, well, you have to suffer because if you don't, you won't understand it? Wouldn't that just make you an a-hole? I mean, wouldn't that just make you maybe you'd have to teach some things, but at the same time, would you let all these other people that are doing debauchery, evil things with evil intent, get away and go vacation all their lives? While the other people struggle from generation to generation? And then you would be, if you were that supernatural being, would you be like, oh, I believe they should now give me prayer, and they should praise me and revere me, and they should think I'm a good God? I mean, is that what you would really believe you would act like? And so that's where I'm looking at it more from a logical perspective, a reasonable perspective. And somebody may want to throw in, at this moment, well, yeah, but God works in mysterious ways. He's incomprehensible. That's like saying, somebody that has a hatchet and is going to hit you over the head with it, right? They're just about to, and somebody's like, no, watch out, stop that from happening. And you're like, what? They're just incomprehensible. They work in mysterious ways. I guess I'll just let them hit me over the head with the hatchet. Right? So my goal, right, my aim in unraveling these codes is to invite God in physical form, not like a glowing tree like in the Bible, or like a light that's in the sky. No, invite God in physical form, whatever form that is. It would be very interesting to see what God actually naturally appears as in natural form, and sit down and have an interview with God. Give God an interview, not an ass-kissing interview like you see with politicians, right? The hard questions, and I'll do it. And number 2, discuss with God about what is happening to humans on Earth. And then maybe find out what's going on in other places too. Get some real answers instead of walking around like, bobbling our heads off the wall like, I don't get it, I don't know, I don't get it. Maybe just actually sit down and have a discussion. And no ass kissers allowed. No, he's going to sit in there and be like, well, I'm not going to ask God that because, I'd be very afraid. He's already planned your death. You can't get out of it. There's no Houdini trick, right? So you might as well just figure it out and understand God for who God really is and let God know that you get God. And maybe God needs to understand you get it and not shy away from it and let God get away with the things that he does that harms people. The good things, hey, well, why wouldn't I expect that? If I buy like a board game and I open it up, I don't expect it to be broken. I expect it to work and all the pieces to work and everything to go good when I play the game. Why would I expect to get a life and then expect to open it up and find out I just got nothing but problems? Who wants that product, right? It's a product to God. So create a good product. And it'd be nice if, like, let's say God can actually watch these videos that I make because, if I had one person as an audience, if nobody else cared and watched, right? Because everybody's like, I don't get it. He's crazy. Whatever. It's like, I would like God to watch it. And if this was always just a conversation, not like, oh, he does watch it. No, I mean, like, I can see him watching it. like not like this pie in the sky, like apparition, this ghost I don't see in the corner of the room. Like, I'm not buying into that. And even if it was true, that's not good enough because I'm an actual person and I'm actually doing things. And I don't get to use that as an excuse of being just a ghost. I don't have to do nothing today. I'm just a ghost. So, all right. So, yeah, I appreciate your time. I do wish goodness on everybody. That's why I talk about don't like the bad stuff, don't like the evil stuff, would like to see all that stuff change around, right? Because we're all on Earth. We're all trapped on a mud ball floating through space. It's just a big dirt ball, right? Floating through space. Got to make it good somehow, right? And I think it's not as good as it could be, right? And somebody might say, well, it's never as good as it could be. Well, then, yeah. Then keep trying to make it better. Don't just settle for, doing what everybody else is doing, mediocre stuff. It's not going to work. It's never worked, and things just continue to go downhill. I mean, I'm not saying everything's always bad. It's not always negative. I'm bringing up the negative things because that's what I want to see change. The good things are fine, right? I can make an episode and talk about all the good things in life. Maybe I will. But I'm just saying these are based on the codes and everything I'm seeing and the things I'm concerned to see change. So I appreciate your time. My name is David Mivshek. This is Reality Storyline Decoded podcast. No fear coming at you.